Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to another WEI podcast. James Hilliard, glad to be on board hosting this conversation. We have titled this Out of the Park, Secure a Walk-Off Win with WEI and HPE GreenLake. Happy to be joined today by Greg LaBrie. He is with us, Vice President of Technology Solutions at WEI. Also, Joe Vidal is in conversation with us. He is the Master Technologist in the Office of the North American CTO with Hewlett-Packard Enterprise. And today, again, as our title says, we're focused on how HPE GreenLake, the edge to cloud platform, can really bring you a massive win at your organization. A couple of things that we're going to discuss. Let me kind of lay that out for you. We'll talk a little bit about how HPE is really part of transforming and accelerating those that are on that digital transformation journey. So we'll touch on that. We're going to talk a little bit of security as well there, because that is always top of mind. And then we'll talk a little bit about what WEI has been bringing to their customers who engaged with them on that GreenLake journey. And we'll talk about the partnership between WEI and HPE. In the whole, we have two special guests, and they will be joining us from the World Champion Team 2004 Boston Red Sox. Tim Wakefield will be joining us, also Kevin Millar as well, talking about winning and teamwork and a championship attitude. So there are special guests that join us a bit later on. On deck is Joe Vidal. That means our leadoff guy is going to be Greg. So I am going to turn to you, Greg, here, and just talk high level at the beginning here about GreenLake and what it is as you're engaging with your customers out there, what it is that they're kind of expecting, what are they wanting from as they're investing in GreenLake?
What I really see for customers and the interest in GreenLake is the ability to have the environment that they're familiar with in the way that they're familiar with it, whether it's in their own data center or they choose to add to the GreenLake model with one of our partners like Equinix and include the data center as well. It's that familiarity with the product, the software, the hardware, the WI services, the HPE services, but nonetheless still get the benefits of a cloud consumption model that you see in all these public cloud offerings. So that is kind of what we see, what we understand, and what we provide to them for an option.
And that consumption model, obviously, the OpEx, CapEx type of conversation. It seems like my observations, Greg, and love to just hear from your ecosystem out there. Is that really one of the stories that is really now resonating? I know it's been a story, part of GreenLake from the beginning, but is it a time now that you're seeing it's really hitting and resonating now, and that's a major transformative approach for a lot of businesses these days?
It is. I mean, that consumption model is a desire of all the CFOs, and they're looking to turn IT into a utility, like your electric bill. But also the cloud consumption model is defined. I think the way WI looks at it, and I know the way HPE looks at it, is more than just a financial piece. It's also some managed services that goes around it, so that you kind of pull your IT people away from the day-to-day administrative boring tasks that quite frankly they were not very good at and they didn't pay attention to because they had other things that were their key initiatives, and now lets those people focus on those key initiatives for the company and provide that, which allows HPE and WI to focus on just running that utility, which is your data center, which is your environment or network as a service, if that's what you choose to do.
And Joe, I mean, we are in this era of everything as a service. And again, GreenLake is something that is really helping folks on that transformation. That's what a lot of people are looking for, is that everything is a service. Talk to me a little bit, Joe, about what is that feedback and what are customers able to achieve in terms of their transformation by utilizing GreenLake?
Well, great question, James, and thank you again for giving us the opportunity to speak today. The bottom line is that HPE GreenLake, our tagline is that GreenLake is the private cloud that comes to you, right? We are the edge to cloud platform as a service company, but more importantly, HPE GreenLake allows you to literally pay for only what you use. Now, I would say actually, I would say pay for only what you need, but there's an insurance company that uses that as their tagline. And ironically or coincidentally enough, they're actually now a new GreenLake customer as well. They're paying for only what they need in IT from HPE. And the beauty of that is, in today's environment, especially with the logistics and manufacturing component shortages that we're seeing worldwide, our GreenLake customers have the benefit of always having 20% or more additional infrastructure on hand, on site, that they're not having to pay for and that they can scale into. And once they do scale into that, if that growth scale is longer term, then we automatically do a replenishment order and add more, I would say, infrastructure on top of that to maintain that 20% buffer. And the beauty of it is that our GreenLake customers are first priority. They're priority one above all other simple customers that are buying just 4 or 8 or 10 servers or just a little more storage, right? So it solves that issue of being able to stay ahead of the business demand. And it allows, as Greg mentioned, allows your IT admins to focus on the business rather than on the infrastructure.
Greg, want to chat a little bit because I mentioned at the beginning here, and it's always part of the conversation. Now, that is security, and so when it comes to one, I know that's still got to be the top priority these days for all the teams that you're talking to. But what is it? What are some of the benefits? What are some of the things that they're anticipating or that they report back to you and that they get in terms of improving their security posture when it comes to being on a GreenLake journey?
James, as we've talked about on other security-focused podcasts in the past, right? I like to give the example of security is done like an onion in layers, right? So, HPE with their solutions provides many of those layers, and data replication, to other sites, including a hybrid to public cloud if you need it, to DR sites, immutable backups. And all the software to do that, as well as silicon-based security on the actual devices and hardware itself. But one thing that WEI uses a lot are our security partners. We're a big partner of Fortinet as an example, and HPE in the GreenLake opportunity has been very flexible in including the entire solution in the GreenLake model so that we can take components that the HPE wouldn't necessarily have and add to the entire security solution, along with all of the security components that HPE does bring to the party, so to speak, itself. And in that way, a customer has an entire security portfolio in their environment that does truly give them a shot at not getting the ransomware or recovering from it if they do get it.
And Joe, back in the day, I'm taking you and me and Greg and everyone listening to way back in the day, we used to have, companies, some just did hardware and some just did software and some just did security. And the leading organizations, HPE among them, is now a multifaceted organization. Security is built into the mindset at HPE now. Talk a little bit about, again, the security focus that has been there that is tied into now all this hardware into things like GreenLake to really provide that secure posture, as secure as possible in the threat-riddled world that we live in.
You're absolutely right. And by the way, the picture behind me is a picture of an Aurora. And I use that because we started Project Aurora about 3 years ago. It started even before that. If you look back at when we started developing our Silicon Root of Trust that's been in the ProLiant Gen 10 servers now for almost 3 years, right? And that created that guaranteed firmware, I call it firmware righteousness, but the bottom line is that we're locking down our firmware so that it's immutable to firmware attacks, right? And that everything in that particular server, now it started with our servers, we've now extended it to the storage, and also to your point, James, to the network layer. Our network layer and what the Aruba team has been doing, the former Introspect product that uses an AI-based analytics engine, is now built into Aruba Central, which is also built into GreenLake Central. And it uses an AI engine to look and see how allow users and devices like a managed thermostat or a network connected thermostat that's not being managed very well might accidentally be or on purposefully has been hacked and is accessing data, as happened to Target, right? So you don't want to be that next target. And our AI engines would catch that in a few seconds, stop that, and lock it off and force that device or that user to re-authenticate it. In the meantime, we are sending out an S&MP security alert right to the security team and to the network administration team. So everybody gets to know about that. It's no longer enough to do it a manual process. The bad actors are so good at being bad. There's millions of them out there on a daily basis trying to attack and get at your stuff, right? You have to use AI to stay ahead in this world. And that's why we've built it into across all three primary stacks of solutions that are now included in GreenLake.
And I want to take a quick moment here, Joe, because I think stories help drive the idea. And so not just speeds and feeds on security and that you've invested in it, but the investment really means something in the real world to customers. You've had some customers that, have had multiple attacks. And because of some of the security that they're utilizing, they've been able to remediate that a lot better than in the past.
That's right, James. And, while we recently announced a new packaged immutable data backup and business continuity service that's very simple to implement, we've had immutable data backup copy solutions out there, leveraging Fortinet, by the way, that Greg mentioned, right? Leveraging our Zerto automation engine, right? That is now also, we have an option to back up to the cloud. We can back up to Amazon and have that as a nearline backup copy that's actually offline and no longer connected to the network. But recently we had a client that was not just hit once, but hit twice, as you mentioned, James. The first time they were hit was about 9 months ago, and it took them over 2 months to recover, and they lost 2 full days worth of data. Now, we then helped them implement a better ransomware solution or an anti-ransomware solution to secure their entire data sets and create an immutable backup copy. And as the bad actors so often do, they came back 6 months later and tried to hit them again. I mean, why not come back to the well, right? We all know that cybercrime right now pays way more than bank heists. There's so much more money in cybercrime than actually breaking into a bank. So these people came back again, but this time the client was ready. They recovered in less than 10 minutes and lost less than 10 seconds of data. Now, I know those numbers sound very straightforward, but they're the actual real numbers. And I'd be glad to share the actual story with any customers out there that would like to hear more details about that and how simple it is to implement that solution to make you immune to a cyber incident as well.
And Joe, again, with security, it's all about trying to get people more secure to that as secure as possible now, right? The 100%, that's still unfortunately unattainable, maybe never will be attainable.
No, you're absolutely right. And when I said immune to a security breach or a cyber breach, nobody's ever truly immune, right? What you can do, however, is guarantee that you have an automated automatic business continuity solution in place that guarantees that the business continues, that you minimize whatever cyber risk there may have been, so that in that particular usage case that I shared earlier, you're back up and running in 10 minutes or less, or maybe you never go down. 100% availability is a solution that we guarantee in our Electra 9000 line, which is now available in GreenLake. So these are absolutely solutions that we can solve for. While nobody's ever immune to a cyber attack, the bad actors will always find a way in, but we can minimize the impact on the business.
And Greg, what I want to do is give folks a little bit of an idea from, again, either your perspective or feedback you've received from other customers as to what do y'all bring to the table that's unique at WEI and helps folks on this journey, on this dive into the GreenLake world and moving them forward.
Well, I particularly like that question because I love the answer. And the answer really is, for those customers that already know WEI, the answer is because it lets WEI do what we've done for 30 years with our HPE partnership, right? But those that don't know WEI, our value has always been, our front-end design engineers, we call them pre-sales engineers, that work together with HPE's pre-sales engineers to, first of all, design you a solution that works for your business needs. And then afterwards, it has to be implemented, it has to be installed and configured. And for our customers, WEI is still that person that can do all of that and get it done the way that you want, where you want. And, GreenLake doesn't take any of that away from WEI or WEI's customers. And then, obviously new with GreenLake is, WEI's involvement on we'll call it the back end, right? So billing for that consumption of the resources, WEI is involved with that and doing that on a monthly basis. We're also reviewing it. And, due to the easy nature to use the GreenLake Central, both WEI and the customer are looking at that, looking at the performance, and then WEI is responsible for making recommendations for either scaling up or scaling down the environment as it might need to be.
And Joe, I know that your familiarity with the WEI team, the heavy lifting that they do on behalf of the customers is something that I know appeals to you.
Absolutely. In fact, I've been working with WorldCom Exchange, or WEI, now for many, many years, even dating back to when I was in the channel. WEI was one of my sub-partners that I worked with when I was at Memorex Telex Corp back in the 80s and 90s, working with them here in Atlanta in the early 90s, because WorldCom Exchange, or WEI as we now know them, really focused in the communication space. And that's rare for so many of our 1,500 top partners. They're really, most of them are focused on servers, storage, the simple stuff. But WEI actually started in the communication space and has grown into these other two spaces and understands that very well. Therefore, they understand security, they understand connectivity. And when we talk about edge to cloud, and this being the era of transforming the edge and edge connectivity, I believe that WEI is uniquely positioned to help us as one of our top partners in that particular space. So I love you guys. Thank you.
Well, I think we've got a great transition point because we were talking about the teamwork between WEI and HPE. Let's talk to some teammates from a World Series championship team. I'm talking about the 2004 Boston Red Sox. I'm going to change a couple things here. We get a little baseball theme going on, a ball from the Red Sox up there. I got a little dirt from Fenway when I visited there. These guys know all about that field. Tim Wakefield joins us, all-star in 2009, a two-time World Series champ, 04 and 07. Roberto Clemente award winner in 2010, a Boston Red Sox Hall of Famer, and a knuckleballer. Might be asking him about that in a moment. Also, Kevin Millar joining us, again, 2004 World Series champion, co-host of MLB Network's Intentional Talk. If your kids are like mine, he's part of the reason they walk around all the time saying, "Got him," because we hear that from Kevin often on the show. We're glad to have both of these guys here. Tim, good to see you, sir.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Let's talk about winning that World Series. Let's talk about the team. And I want to get to the emotions later, but specifically for you, was there a moment in the game where you were saying, this is going to happen? We are here. The curse is being broken. We're going to be the champs.
I will tell you, there was a definite moment, and it was after Game 3 of the ALCS against New York. It was when my teammate, who's on the other end here, Kevin Millar, came in, because we all went home that night. We got killed, what was it, Kevin, 19-4 or something crazy like that. And we all, at least I was thinking, okay, what am I going to do? When are we going home? When am I going to drive home, back to Florida, all this stuff? We get to the ballpark the next day, and Kevin was like, hey, don't let us win tonight. He changed, in my opinion, the whole dynamic of our club that day after Game 3 going into Game 4. And he set a tone, and he set an attitude for all of us on that team. And he was right. Don't let us win tonight, because if we win tonight, we got Pedro on the mound in Game 5, and then Schilling in Game 6, and who knows what's going to happen in Game 7. And I'm telling you what, it was unbelievable, the amount of weight that was lifted off our shoulders, because we had nothing to lose.
Mindset. I mean, Kevin, that's what he's talking about, right? That mindset there. Talk to me a little bit about what was in your head when you're sharing that with your teammates.
Yeah, it's funny because we got beat pretty bad, and my dad was in town from Los Angeles, and the only thing he said was, "I hope Matsui and Gary Sheffield have blisters on their hands because they got 4 hit seats. They were like 4 for 6. Balls were flying off the monster. It was a beatdown, and now we're down, 0-3 in a 7-game series. So that, if you think about that, like against the mighty Yankees, it's not fun. And we had Derek Lowe going in game 4 that we thought that, D-Lowe's not afraid of any situation, but the matchup's not great because these Yankees were sitting there and they're a team that saw a bunch of pitches and wore you out. Now, that being said, when did it change? That morning, I'm reading the paper. Dan Chauncey had an article, Boston Globe, and he said one thing in there that really ticked me off, and it was the word frauds. And he called us a pack of frauds. And when that word came out, and that statement came out, and I'm using the restroom as we all do in the mornings and reading back in the day when we read papers and not sat and looked at our devices, this hit home. And I'm telling you, it truly hit home. And I went to that field that day. I'm like, frauds, they might be better than us. They might be better than us, no doubt. Mark Bellhorn, Kevin Millar, Tim Wakefield, Orlando Cabrera, Billy Miller. It probably doesn't match up. Okay, great. But to sit around and say frauds. So I come to the locker room that day and, the boys, some of the guys read it, didn't read it, and I'd start yipping and yapping. And, Dan Chauncey comes walking in that thing and Wakey knows, like, the media comes in, they follow each other. And here's Dan, he's got this red perm. And I've had a great relationship with Dan Chauncey. But at the end of the day, that wasn't nice, in my opinion. Now you're attacking integrity. So he walked in, and the only thing for us to do as players is to make him feel uncomfortable in his environment. Well, I mean, outside of his environment, that's our home, the locker room. So I just kind of yelled out, "Your hair sucks. Your hair sucks, Dan." And it just kind of like, what are you talking about? And then I told him a story. I just told you, I said, "You call us frauds. Is Tim Wakefield a fraud? Is David Ortiz a fraud? Is Trot Nixon a fraud? Is Jason Varitek a fraud? Is Billy Miller a fraud? What in the hell?" And so that's what started this whole thing. Now, that being said, all of a sudden, Poppy starts getting involved. The next thing you know, yeah. Now this energy has turned. We're not pouting anymore. We're not getting beat by the Yankees. Don't let us win tonight. And that was the true story. Do not let us win tonight. We don't know how we're going to win tonight. We don't know if we're going to win tonight. But if we do, we have, Pedro game 5, Schilling game 6. And trust me, anything can happen in game 7. I don't care who we throw that day. My point to this whole thing was, do not let us win tonight. And I will tell you right now, that's when it changed, is the pack of frauds. You could say Yankees are better, but you called us frauds. And I want, people to think about that. Like, we write things and we throw things, but that's a rude gesture at that point, because this team played hard. This team gives you everything they had, and we weren't the best players by any means, but at my point, we were the best team, and that's when it turned.
Well, I don't care who you are. If you're a Major League Baseball player, you're no fraud, right? No fraud whatsoever.
Everybody's good.
That's right.
Tim, Kevin just said a word, though, that I also think is key. So fraud was obviously a key word, but trust. Tim, you had to trust in Kevin's mindset. You had to then trust, and it sounds like you guys both did. You trusted that, hey, we get here and we've got all the ammunition in the world coming those next couple of games. Trust must have been such a big factor for you guys to work together.
And we trusted each other. We were through the course of the year, we had a really good chemistry on our team. It's like like he was saying, the Billy Millers, the Derek Lowe's, the Tim Wakefields, the Kevin Millars, the Orlando Cabreras that we had gotten in a trade for Nomar, or like right around in August,
July.
Right? So
and
you're right, in July. So we were a bunch of gamers, or we call them brown baggers back then. That we were the guys that weren't the greatest players, but we were gonna tire you out when it comes down to it. And that was the mindset we had, and we trusted each other. We all did a lot of stuff together. We all went on the road. We went to lunch together. We drank beer in the clubhouse together. We told stories together on the buses. We were a unit. We were a team. And Kevin was one of the guys that got us together along with Ortiz. We had fun, the whole Big Poppy thing with Varitek before Kevin had got there, right? It was so much fun to just rag on guys that made you feel like you were a part of the team. And when we got to that point in the series, it was like, when you called us a fraud, then you really pissed us off. And it actually changed the whole dynamic with Kevin saying what he said. But you're right. Trust in each other to do our own jobs, and that's what got us through.
Yeah, knowing your role, staying in your lane, knowing what you guys each individually do best, and trust that other guy to do that best. And it's the same thing in business, right? You have to trust those teams to do that. That's one of the ties there. Kevin, let me ask you this. Right, it's reversing the curse. It's such a spectacular moment in all of sport. Would it have been the same if it was, say, against the Oakland A's or Seattle or the Giants or some team that wasn't the Yankees, right? The Yankees. And it was that also just something that just made it that much more special to be a part of?
Yeah, James, let's be honest. This rivalry then, and Wakey played in a lot more games than I have against that unit, which is the Yankees, but the cities, the way that they competed against each other, and we all say hate, you hate. Hate's a big word, right? We respected the Yankees. I mean, there's nobody I watched more than Derek Jeter. He played the game the right way. He played hard, played it right. Never see him through a helmet. Was a class. Always treated you with respect on the field. There were other guys on the team that we would sit there and like hit each other in the elbows. Like, yeah, we can't stand that guy. But look, you respect him, okay? But when you look around there and you got A-Rod, Jeter, Giambi, Sheffield, Matsui, Bernie Williams, Jorge Posada, it doesn't match up on paper, right? Then you got, like I said, we already named our infield, and then Johnny Damon's doing his thing in the outfield. Looked like he threw right-handed, but he threw left-handed. And you got Manny, who didn't know where we landed, if we were in Cincinnati or Cleveland or whoever. But you had Trot Nixon was the ultimate Red Sox, like played with half a finger, played with half a back, whatever it was to play the game that day. There was toughness on our team. There was accountability on our team. We got on each other on our team, and it had nothing to do with fighting. We were a family, like Wake said. And that's what it's all about. So to do it against the Yankees, no doubt in my mind, this is the way to do it. And it felt like the World Series. And let's be honest, there were a lot of viewers. That same team in 03 walked off crying. We had dudes in our locker room sitting there crying when Aaron Boone hit that home run. And we went all the way back to Game 7, and Pedro Martinez and Grady Little, who, by the way, was a great man, Grady Little. We all loved Grady Little. And then he gets fired over the situation with a couple 2-out bloops that they tie the game up, and we end up losing to Aaron Boone's home run. And that happened. So you know what that did? That made us tougher. I mean, Wakey, Millar, Nixon, Timlin, there's tears, there's pain, there's everything. But you know what we did? We came right back and added a Keith Falk, added a Kurt Schilling, same group of guys. Terry Francona took this team over, and we are on the same stage, same thing. It doesn't make sense. Same rivalry, which, by the way, was hot then. We fought. We had the Clemens and the Zimmer and the Gary Sheffield fighting the fans. Well, there was always something. A-Rod and Veritek. Bronson hits A-Rod with a curveball, and you're going to tough look out there, and Veritek's like, go to first base, and then boom. That's what this rivalry was about. So to do it against this team down 3 and to win 4 straight, and then it's never happened in the history of sports. I mean, once your team's out, you were rooting for the Red Sox, just like the 93 Phillies, Morandini and John Kruk. Like, once your team was out, you kind of like these guys. And I think we were normal. We were out. We didn't have limousines, and it felt like the Yankees were like Santa Claus. They came through the back door and they came through the fireplace. You never really saw them out. Red Sox were out. We were hat back out backwards, and we were going to do a shot of Jack Downs at the bar with the fan. We would, but we rolled 12, 15 deep, and the ones that weren't there is because their families were there. So yes, to do it against the Yankees, no doubt in my mind, was the ultimate. And it would have been a little different. I mean, we still have been happy, but let's be honest, the Yankees, are you kidding me? And then we go into St. Louis and then win 4 straight.
Yeah. Let me ask you guys this. One of the other things that we were talking about for business is transformation and change and all that. Let me come to the new changes in baseball. Tim, you first. We'll wrap with Kevin. Of the new rules and changes that have been brought in and are being brought in, is there one that, Tim, as a fan of the game, you're going to be watching this year to wonder what big impact it has?
There's not one in particular. I think the changes that they made are really, 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 really good. The only thing I don't like, and this happened last year, I understand it, it's the extra inning rule. It's kind of fun and kind of cool, but again, I'm used to like battling it out till it ends,
Yeah.
I don't want it to go 33 innings like it did in Pawtucket that holds the record, but I'd like to see. It's kind of cool to watch now that I'm not a part of it anymore, but it's hard to put myself in this situation whether I would like it or not, and I kind of don't like it. So the new rules, I'm going to have to see it play out. You know, the new stuff that they got going on. I don't know every one of them.
Yeah.
You know, I have the privilege of not paying too much attention to it anymore, even though I cover it. But
no,
again,
and that's fair enough. And again, I think it is a play out. And I think a lot of us fans are waiting for things to play out, see what we like. Kevin, is there something you think that you're going to be watching for just to see how it does impact how the game is perceived, how it's played?
Yeah, I like the DH. I like the universal DH because I always felt that, listen, at the end of the day, I know that old school, the bunt's kind of gone. Let's be honest. I mean, baseball's now about just seeing how many home runs you can hit, and you can hit 235 and hit 35 good launch angle swings. That's kind of what they do. That's where it's changed, the shifts. I will say that universal DH gives more of an opportunity to a guy like Kyle Schwarber that goes on to go into the National League to Philadelphia and now be the designated hitter. It adds more jobs. We're going to see Nelly Cruz with the Nationals, so I like that. I mean, we are all our purities of baseball, but let's be honest, the way the pitchers now kind of like, you don't want to get them get hurt, so they hit a ball and then they jog to first, halfway down the line, they walk off. It looks a little tired to me, so let's put position players in there, add another job, and let's make this game a little more even when now World Series, because you always saw the National League, American League teams. You go into the National League Park as an American League club, you're losing a big poppy. Or I'm going to go to the bench and we're going to put somebody on first base that was only played 2 to 5 games a year. So, you lose a Jim Thome if you're the Indians when you go in to a National League Park. Well, that's a big part of your game. So it's almost like an unfair advantage. The National League guys get to add a hitter. American League guys get to kind of lose a hitter. So I do like universal DH.
I agree with you. I like that too, Kevin. It's I totally forgot about the universal DH, but I also like what maybe, obviously coming down the road is more of a balanced schedule, because the whole interleague play kind of bothered me, because we're vying for a wild card in our division, but yet we're playing, different National League teams, and it didn't really make it fair. Like, we're competing for a wild card when out of the American League East, and the American League Central is playing different teams in interleague play. So in my opinion, I didn't think it really made fair. What Bud Selig did to bring interleague play into play back in '98, I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, was really, really cool. It added a lot of flair to the game, and people in Boston got to see National League teams, and people in National League teams got to see American League teams. But I think it got the job done what it was supposed to do. I'd like to see that change for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the balance schedule. No, there are a lot of changes, and we'll see it. And it's one of the things, folks. This is where we'll wrap things up here, right? In business, as in baseball, change is inevitable. I think in business, as in baseball, for the greatest teams, it's also about teamwork. And if you can have that teamwork, have that trust, be able to fire your team up a little bit now and again, right, to drive towards those goals you have. I mean, those are the things that we want to focus on. And really, folks, that's what we've tried to bring across in the conversation here today. Really appreciate Kevin and Tim joining us here. My thanks again to Joe and Greg for the first part of our conversation, talking from the perspective of HPE and WEI. Here's what I want you to do, folks: a little contact information and follow-ups as we roll out of here. WEI.com for more information. Also very simple, if you want to learn more about GreenLake, then greenlake.com, and you can send a note to marketing@wei.com, and that'll allow you to continue to engage with them, have these conversations about the transformation journey that you're on. They'll bring in the right partners, including those from HPE as needed, to help you move on forward. With that, we're going to wrap things up. James Hilliard here. As always, be safe, be well, and we do look forward to talking to you all down the road.